We have two ways of looking at life. One is seeing through the natural, with our natural eyes, what's around us, what we see on the news, what we see in the culture, what's on the internet. But God wants us to look at life differently, through His lens, through the lens of His ways, His purpose, His word. We're asked to do that through faith. So join us today as we learn how Abraham did just this. Good morning. Welcome to our Women's Bible Study. We are super glad you're joining us today. We are continuing on with our series in Genesis. We have a new set. We showed it to you last week. This is a picture of Israel. We wanted to make sure you saw that as we see Abraham on his journey, that this is actually the area. This is Israel. This is the Dead Sea down here. And that desert, hot, that's exactly where Abraham lived. So, we haven't really gotten very far on Abraham's journey because of my lesson last week. We kind of took a stop along the way because we want to answer a question like, how do I know God is speaking to me and how do I know God's will? And so what I want to do is just pick up our story in Genesis 12 and we'll just move on from here because we called this The Journey Begins so we can see Abraham's journey. All right, here you go. Genesis 12:1. The Lord had said to Abram, leave your country, your people, your father's household, go to the land I will show you. I will make you a great nation and I will bless you and I will make your name great and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you and I will curse those who curse you. And the peoples on the earth will be blessed through you. So Abram left as the Lord had told him and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. So the journey begins. Verse 5. Then Abraham took Sarai, his wife, and Lot, his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered, and the people whom they had acquired in Haran, and they departed to go to the land of Canaan. So they came to the land of Canaan. Now, I want to show you a map so you kind of know exactly what we're talking about here. This is Israel. As you can see, the Mediterranean Sea is to the left. The very top up there, the blue, is the Sea of Galilee. So that's where Jesus did a lot of his ministry. Down south, down here, you see the Dead Sea. That would be right here behind us, what's here. And so that's farther south. This is where Abraham would have hung out and been. So this is the land. So he started out, he came all the way from the top up there, and then he came down past the Sea of Galilee, and then down on. He just continued going until God told him to stop. Now, I told you last week, and I say the same thing I would have stopped at the Sea of Galilee. I would have been like, is my beach house ready, okay? But thankfully, Abraham doesn't think like me. So we're going to see something with Abraham that happens to all of us. And I really want to hit this today because life changes for all of us. It just does. Everything is different. Like when I was setting up Bible study this morning, I realized how different our Bible study is today than it was 2 years ago. Completely different everything. And it's so odd, but that's just life. And as I was doing donuts and bagels this morning, I thought, it's so interesting how life has just changed so drastically. I was thinking about all the people that used to come here, and I'm like, wow, you know, Audrey and Penny moved away, and Davina moved away, and all these different tables, and I'm like, everyone's just moved on and done something different in life. But the good part, and what we need to know, is that's life. And that's just what happens no matter who you are. So, because we know that life changes all the time, I want you to do this. I want you to pretend that you each have a pair of these, okay? We call them God glasses. Now, the reason these are really goofy looking, because this is how when you and I look at things through the lens of God, people look at us and go, wow, you have weird glasses. Wow, you look really weird. Because it's not normal for people to look at life through these. It's normal for people to look at life this way. I just see everything in the natural. It's so interesting that this week has been kind of tough, the last couple of weeks, for the whole Russia-Ukraine thing that's been going on. And And people would write me and they'd be like, okay, what's going on? What's happening? What's going to happen in this world? And I always responded with this. If I look at it through the natural, I'm just like, yeah, it just looks like the world is blowing up, okay? But the minute I put my God glasses on, everything changes. Because now suddenly I don't freak out. I'm like, what's going on in the world? What's going to happen to the United States? I go this. Everything that's going on over there is horrible. But God. Everything I do now when I put my glasses on is, but God. I don't know, God is doing something. God is doing something in this world. God is doing something in the Ukraine. God is doing something. I don't know what it is, but I really know that he is. And I know that because I'm wearing my God glasses. And because I know the Bible and I know what the Bible says, that it says that God uses even evil for good. And the pictures we've seen coming out of Christians in the Ukraine that are literally praising and worshiping God and singing in the subways and pointing people to Jesus. They've run out of Bibles in there because people are like, I don't know what to do. And they're like, we have the answer. So if Ukraine, this whole thing happens, but God is doing something. We know that this world will never, ever stay the same. It won't. We've read Revelation. We know there is an end game to this. It was a reminder. The second verse I memorized for our discipleship group was the Psalms 2. Did I put this down? Yes. Why do the nations rage and the people plot in a vain thing? Why is Putin doing this? Why is he plotting this whole thing? Like, it makes no sense. He who sits in the heavens shall laugh. The Lord holds him in derision. It's like, here's the deal. God is doing something. I don't know. But if I didn't have my God glasses on and watch the news, I would be a disaster. But because I keep my God glasses on, I'm not a disaster. Because I really honestly know God is doing something. Seasons always change, but God is in it. Life never stands still, but God is in it. And today I want to make a point that we need to be living our life always with this. You walk out the door and you got your God glasses on. You go home and you hang out with your husband, you got your God glasses on. You go to work, you have your God glasses on. Because if I don't have these on, I can become a mess really, really fast. I want to be able to see the world and see what's going on through his eyes, through his plans, through his purpose. Not just what I see with my eyes. I was thinking about this when I was looking back at the Luke lesson that we did, 10, 12, I don't know how many years ago. And all the stories that I told you about my kids, I guess they're Rob's kids too. Cheyenne was like 16, I think Dusty was 14. And the stories we told, like Dusty was 16, and he had a truck and he had all these lights on his truck and he was always being stopped by the police. And then one day Rob went out and cut all the wires. It was kind of this big thing. And I think I told you all about that. But there's always fun stories to tell you. Because that was my life back then, and that was just what I could do. I could share with you most of our life. But seasons change. And Cheyenne now is married and pregnant, and she's going to have her own funny stories with her own kids. And Dusty's in school full time, and he's getting ready to go to medical school. And we don't see very much. There's just not many funny stories. So the other day I thought, all right, I got to come up with some new stories for you. So I'm going to start telling you stories about Rob. Okay, so I'm doing a lesson, I'm sitting in my chair, and I look over at Rob. He's sitting in an easy chair, and he's watching TV, and he's eating crackers, okay? And I started laughing out loud. I'm like, that is the funniest thing. That is not even funny, okay? I can't even tell you that, all right? But that's how life has changed. It just has. It's different than 10 to 20 years ago when I could tell you really funny stories about the kids. Now my stories look like this. I have no idea where I put my keys. I don't know. Like, I stuck them somewhere and I can't find them. My other story is like I almost ran out of gas because Rob is one of these guys that like he's if he's half tank, half full, he's empty in his mind. Here's me. See where it says fuel level low? Okay, I run my car to that. And then I just took a picture of it one day because I was laughing at him. But I have to tell you, I do have a funny story for you. So because my fuel tank is always low, we were driving and we came back from dinner. We stopped at the gas station to get some gas. Rob was getting gas. Do you know those stupid little Werther candies, the caramel ones, So, we just had Italian food, and I was like, oh, I need something. So I grabbed one of those, and I was eating it. So as I was eating it, suddenly there was something in the middle of it that was crunchy. And I was like, where this isn't crunchy? So we're driving off. I take the piece of candy out of my mouth. I throw it out the window, okay? About 30 seconds later, we're getting ready to pull onto Carefree Highway, and I feel something in my mouth. I'm like, oh, Rob, I lost a tooth. I lost one of my crowns in the back, and they're like really expensive. I was like, Rob, I go, it's stuck in that piece of candy. And he goes, well, let's go back and look for it, okay? And we did, okay? We pulled to the side of the road, and there we are, walking up and down and there it was. We found it, okay? So it was all washed off, and I took it to the dentist, and I'm like, okay, could you please put my crown back in? But you might want to sterilize it because it's been on the street, okay? But that's just my life. That's my life. Here's another part of my life. You know why I'm wearing these this morning? Because I could not fit into my jeans. I just couldn't. That's part of my life, okay? I decided I needed to start being more healthy, okay? I know that's shocking to most of you. So I went to the restaurant, and instead of getting my normal, mushroom ravioli, all right, I decided, I should get a salad. So I got this really good chicken salad. And it was so good that every day I need to have one now. And I'm so proud of myself, but I think I've gained 5 pounds. So I go to my daughter-in-law, who's really skinny, and I'm like, okay, you eat salads all the time. Why are you skinny and I'm gaining weight? And she goes, well, what's on the salad? I go, well, fried chicken. Okay, fried chicken pieces and ranch dressing and balsamic. And she goes, oh, yeah, that doesn't work. So I'm like, fine. I'm going back to peanut M&Ms, and I'm going back to Oreos, and I'm going back to the way I used to eat. So there you go. That's my life. So anyway, that's the problem. We get older and things change. Here's what someone wrote. I thought this was cute. Old age comes at a bad time. When you finally know everything, you start to forget everything you know. I'm like, that's my life. That's so me. But that's just it. And for Abraham, that's what we're going to see. Everything is going to change. He was probably very happy living in Ur of the Chaldeans, okay? At this point, he's 75 years old. He's probably fine. I'm fine right where I'm at. Content to live out the rest of my days around family and friends. But until this happened, until the moment he heard the voice of God. Abraham, I want you to pick up and leave everything you know and follow me. And I'm just going to tell you moment by moment where I want you. And what Abraham realized is the life that he used to live. Some people live in the past, but I used to be married. I used to have money. I used to have that house. I used to. And it's not like that anymore. And see, sometimes we can get that way, and we need to change our perspective and put our God glasses on and say, you know what? Things are different now. They're different now because God is going to do something different in my life and for those around me. Our new life with our God glasses on for Abraham is going to be different. He's going to have new problems, new opportunities to trust God, new adventures. So God tells Abraham to leave his homeland and his family, where God would use him to start this new nation, that he would bless him in this world. But here's the interesting part about Abraham. I don't think he understood one thing that God was telling him. But the most amazing thing about Abraham, and that's why he is such a big deal to our faith and to the Jewish faith, is this. Abraham did exactly what God asked him, even though it didn't make sense. And sometimes God asks us to do things that don't make sense either. You need to love that person who hurt you. You need to stay in that job where people are making fun of you for your faith. You need to give that money. You need to take in that child. Whatever it is that God's asking, you're like, I don't understand that. But you step out just like Abraham did. Say, you know what, God, I don't understand it, but I'm going to do it. Stan Purdom, in one of his sermons on Abraham, he shared this illustration. In 2003, there was a TV show that came on called Joan of Arcadia. I don't know if anyone ever saw it. I never did. But he said it was a very thoughtful show. Of course, it only lasted 2 years because, of course, no one wants thoughtful shows. But the title alludes to, Joan of Arcadia. The title alludes to Joan of Arc, the 15th century teenager who believed she heard the voice of God, that it was her job to go save France from England during the 100-Year War. So Joan led an army into battle, successfully forcing the British to retreat, Later, she was captured by the British. She was tried for heresy. She was burned at the stake. Okay, so that's the premise for the show. But the Joan in the television series was kind of like Joan of Arc. She kept hearing from God. God would talk to her and tell her things. But this Joan of Arcadia was just a modern girl struggling with issues of being a teenager. They moved to a new town. Her brother's a paraplegic. There's just a lot of issues going on. And complicating her life is suddenly God is talking to her. But God doesn't come as like this inner voice to her. He disguises himself as other people. One day it's a cute boy. One day it's a woman with an attitude. One day a maintenance worker. Theologically, I would have had a heart attack with this show. But there's a point to it. Initially, Joan questions her sanity, but eventually she starts just following the instructions. She has no idea why God is asking her to do certain things, but she says, you know what, I'm going to do it anyway. And what she realized is that what she didn't understand here, down the line, totally made sense. Like God would open up a door for someone else and someone else would be blessed. Things would happen that would never have happened if she didn't do what God told her to do up here. Now, I've never seen the show. And it was just an interesting concept because we actually see it all through the Bible. God tells people to do things that make no sense to them whatsoever. And all of these people in the Bible had the exact same choice to listen to what God says or not. Think about Noah. Hey, Noah, go build an ark. What? Like an ark? Just trust me. Hey, Moses, go to Egypt and stand up to the most powerful man in the nation, Pharaoh, and tell him to let his entire workforce of slaves go. What? Just trust me. Trust me. Hey, Joshua, you've got all these millions of people that are getting ready to cross into the land. Oh, the Jordan River is raging. It's like at high level. How are we going to get these people? Just take them across. Trust me. Joshua's like, what? Hey, Esther, go talk to your husband, the king. Even though that would be a death sentence to you, I need you to go do that. Just trust me. Hey, Mary, you're going to have a baby by the Holy Spirit who will be God. Just trust me. It's all through the Bible. But the greatest part about these men and women is that even though they didn't really even understand why God was asking them or how he would even accomplish it, you know what? They did exactly what God asked of them. It's kind of cool. Because that's what faith is. Faith is believing what God says and then doing what he asks. So Abraham just does that. God says go and he just picks up and he goes. But what we're going to learn from Abraham throughout these next few weeks is that sometimes he's just like us. There's sometimes when Abraham is totally faithful to God. And there's other times when we see him completely and utterly faithless. Sometimes we see him step out in faith and trust God. Other times we see him not doing that at all, and he reacts in fear. And the reason why is because until we grow up enough in our faith, we realize that it's so much easier to live in the natural, with our God glasses off. Because honestly, in the natural, it's hard to really believe and trust in a God that we've never seen. It's so much easier to have faith in something that we can see, but it shouldn't be that way. The natural for us should be a relationship with God, but it really isn't. A relationship with God seems unnatural. I actually put that in the next one. Unnatural, there you go. That's what feels weird, is this have faith in God. It's easy to have faith in something we can see. Like you guys walked in here this morning and there's a chair sitting there. And you're like, oh, you pull the chair out, you can see it, you can touch it, you can feel it, you can check it to make sure it's sturdy enough. You can see it in the natural. When you go to Taco Bell and you place the order, you know they're going to hand it to you because you can see it. It's in the natural. When we order a movie ticket online at AMC, I've been to AMC, I know that when I arrive there, they're going to hand me my ticket and my seat will be waiting for me. Why? Because it's in the natural. It's something that I can absolutely see with my eyes. See, for us, it's easy to have faith in something we can see in the natural. It just is. But then we see Abraham, this man of faith that comes along, and he's asked by God to do something different. Abraham, I want you to do this. I want you to put your God glasses on, and I want you to start looking at life in the unnatural. The unnatural is looking at life through the lens of how God and what God is doing in this earth. And for Abraham, that's going to mean believing in something that he couldn't even see. So what he does is he just moves forward. He trusts God, even though he doesn't even have a clue where he's going. And it made me realize that's exactly what our lives should look like. Exactly. God wants us to walk through our life with our God glasses on. Honestly, I believe if we do that, you will live with more peace, you will live with more joy, nothing will throw you because you're like, I don't know, but God. But God is always doing something. Here's an example. Cheyenne and Brad, they bought their first house, okay? So their house was done actually before their lease on their apartment was up. So the option for them was to stress, fret, worry, freak out, whatever. We can't afford payments on both. I mean, you could just hear that, go down that track. But you know what they did? They did this. They put their God glasses on, and they prayed. And they said, God, you know exactly what we need. We can't afford to make 2 payments for 4 months. So God, we need you to bring someone into our life that will rent our place. So they did their part. They put out a Facebook notice. They put on Instagram, hey, if you know anyone, whatever. And they trusted that God would work everything out behind the scenes. See, when you have your God glasses on, that's what happens. I know God is going to work something out behind the scenes. So I was putting this lesson together. And after they were in the putting my God glasses on and they were peaceful and all that kind of stuff, after I made Cheyenne the perfect example of this, she calls me and she's having a meltdown. She took her God glasses and she took them off. And she was freaking out. And she was like, Mom, you don't understand. We have 2 months. We have to put our 2-month notice in right now because we're not going to get this and it's going to cost us this. And she was going through this whole thing and she was freaking out. And I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm going to have to edit you out of my lesson, like really serious, okay? What happened to trusting God would bring someone to sublease your, what happened to that? And you know what she said? She said, Mom, I'm just so scared. I'm so scared. Because remember, in the natural, you're scared. You're frightened. And that's all she could see. In the natural, we feel like we have to do something. I have to do something. I have to make this better. I have to go out and work harder. And God's like, wow, would you just put your God glasses back on? See, with our God glasses on, we can trust God that he cares enough about us. He knows the situation. He can work things beyond anything we can imagine. So we kept saying, Cheyenne, do not jump the gun. Don't do that. Wait. Here's why. God can't show you that he can and will come through if you don't wait. If we're constantly jumping the gun and we're constantly going, I got to do this, we're not even giving God a chance to even do something, to even show us that he can come through, and he always comes through at the last minute. That's just how God works. I told her about an illustration. I said, Cheyenne, here's an illustration I will never forget. Many, many years ago, I used to listen to Pastor James McDonald, and there was this big game. It must have been, he was Chicago Bulls, and it was probably the finals or something. He wants to take his son. So, you know what he did? He did this. He put on his God glasses. He's like, son, we're going to pray. And we're going to pray that God brings us tickets, that God gives us, somebody will put it upon their heart, that God will put it on someone's heart to give us these tickets. So they prayed and they prayed and they prayed. But then, as the game got closer, maybe it's Friday, and no one had called him. So you know what they did? They took off their glasses. We're not going to get tickets. God's not going to come through for us. Oh my gosh, go on Ticketmaster. So his son go on Ticketmaster, buy some really expensive tickets. The next morning they woke up and James got a call. Hey James, you're not going to believe this, but we got 2 extra tickets, really good seats, like front row or something like that, for you and your son if you'd like to go. But he already took his God glasses off, and he already just missed the opportunity. I said, Cheyenne, don't do that. Don't do it. Give God the time to do something in your life. Another example of the whole God glass thing is Rob woke up one morning and he said, I have this really great idea. And so he tells it to me. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's a very good idea, okay? Like, I just like, the logistics, that doesn't work for me. And then we forgot about it. But Rob didn't really think about it or forget about it. So what he did is he put his God glasses on. And he said, hey, God, here's the deal. I think this is a great idea. If you think this is a great idea, then you're going to have to change my wife's heart because she doesn't think it's a good idea. So I'm not going to take my God glasses off, and I'm not going to fight with her and argue with her about this. I'm just putting my God glasses on, keep my mouth shut, and I'm just going to let you work in her life. So about 3 weeks later, I woke up and I had this brilliant idea. Like, it was so brilliant, I was like, oh my gosh. So I go running out to Rob and I'm like, Rob, I have the greatest idea. So I share with him my whole idea, and he started laughing. He goes, that was my idea 3 weeks ago, okay? And I was like, are you serious? And he goes, don't you remember me having this conversation with you? And I'm like, well, I don't remember much, but vaguely, okay? But that's my point. See, when you put your God glasses on, there's just so much less stress in your life. Like, Rob didn't have to freak out on me. He just had to just put his God glasses on and trust God. If this is a good idea, you make it happen. Now, the problem with that is when we start putting our God glasses on and we're like, I'm trusting God for this, I'm trusting God for that. The problem is what happens when God doesn't do what you want him to do? What would happen if God never changed my mind? Or if no one ever subleased Cheyenne's apartment? So, because that will happen. Sometimes you will have your God glasses on and you're going to be like, well, why didn't God do what I wanted? And that we have to realize that when it happens to me, this is where I go. My faith and trust is in a God who sees something I don't see. I don't know. It's that whole idea of but God. But God is doing something I can't see, I don't know, I don't understand. Maybe he's teaching me a deeper lesson. Maybe the idea Rob and I had wasn't so good after all. Maybe instead of subleasing for Cheyenne's apartment, God was going to provide her place to someone like a missionary who needed it. Like, I don't know. Maybe God is doing something completely different, something that doesn't make sense at the moment. But I've learned that when I keep my God glasses on, I don't have to worry about it because I know God has my best interests at heart. I know that. I know he has my best interests at heart. He's not out to hurt me. He's out to get me to a good place. I also know this. I know and trust that he's leading and guiding me. I really believe that. He's leading me and guiding me all through my life. And with that knowledge, I finally know what peace is. But see, I would never have known this if we didn't study people like Abraham. If I didn't learn all of this from Noah or from the different people in the Bible. I wouldn't be able to comprehend what they were going through. Because I bet when God told Abraham, leave your country and family and go to this unknown land, and I am going to make you a nation, I don't even think he understood what that meant. He had no children. His wife is barren. She can't have kids. What does that even mean? But we can see in hindsight, because we have the whole book, the whole Bible, we can see Genesis in hindsight and see, oh, I see what God was doing. And then we could go, he's doing the same thing in my life. Here's what we learned from Abraham. Life is a journey, and there are difficult days along the way. There just are. And we see it with Abraham because he even had this really impressive promise from God. God's like, I'm going to build a nation through you. I'm going to bless those who bless you. I'm going to curse those who curse you. And I think Abraham, when he started out, probably thought, hey, I got this really cool promise. Everything's going to be fine. But there are difficult days. And regardless as if you know him or if you have a good relationship or if you're just learning, you got to learn to put your God glasses on. That's the only way that you're going to make it through this life with peace. Now, Abraham starts out on his journey. His name is still Abram at the time. He doesn't have a GPS system on his camel. We know that. He does have a huge promise from God. A huge promise from God that there is a future for his descendants. There should be no way that Abraham ever should fear about anything in his life because he can cling to this promise of God, but we are going to see that even Abraham takes his God glasses off. All this God faith thing is new to Abraham, and he would have to learn right off the bat that he's got to keep those glasses on or he's going to be a mess. Because the land, when he got into it, was not going to be quite so easy peasy as he thought it was going to be. Verse 6 says this, Abram passed through the land to the place of Shechem, as far as the terebinth tree of Moreh, and the Canaanites were in the land. Now, for those of you who've been with us since the beginning, remember the Canaanites. Remember Noah got drunk and naked, and his son Ham gossiped about his dad when he saw him. Remember the curse or the prophecy that was about his grandson Canaan's descendants. These are them. Everything Noah said hundreds and hundreds of years ago came true, because that's how awesome God is. He's that big to make sure that that would happen. And these Canaanites, the descendants of Ham, they're in the land. And they're exactly what Noah said they would be, evil and wicked. And these people would be a thorn in Israel's side for most of the Old Testament. They're idolaters. They sacrifice their babies to false gods, like that's just what they do. And Abraham is moving through this land with his wife and nephew and all the people that they brought from Haran. He'd have sheep and goats and all these things, and I bet the Canaanites were not very happy that this man was coming through their land. I thought about our journey as followers of Christ, that we're on this earth and we're passing through like the Canaanites. And we go to work with Canaanites, and we have neighbors that are Canaanites in a sense. Because following Jesus is not the norm. The culture around us doesn't want anything to do with God. Followers of Jesus are persecuted. We're laughed at for our beliefs. And Abraham is looking around at these Canaanites, and I bet he's wondering this, serious God? Are you sure you want me in this place? Everyone around me, they're all evil. They're all God haters. See, for us that could mean, are you sure, God, that you want me to be at this school? Everyone's evil. God, are you sure you want me in that job? No one likes you. God, are you sure you want me in this marriage? My husband doesn't like you. God reminded Abraham, just like he reminds us, you are exactly right where I want you. Because Abraham, you are going to be a light to this whole entire nation. And Jesus said that to us in Matthew 5:14. You are the light of the world. A city that's set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your God in heaven. That's our job. That was Abraham's job. There's a story about how the caverns north of Yellowstone National Park were discovered. One of the original explorers was just walking along the top of the mountain. He fell through a hole, dropped several hundred feet into this big cavern. He stuck down there, almost total darkness, over a week, no food, no water. He cried out every day, help me, hoping somebody above him would hear. Sure enough, someone actually did hear him. They heard a faint sound, they looked around, found the hole, they dug him out. That's how they found this giant cavern. But they asked him, how did you hold on to hope day after day in the dark without giving up? He said, you know what? He said, as I looked up, there was this little pinhole ray of light. That's it. And he said, I kept my focus on that ray of light. And it reminded me that that is our job. It's our job in a world that is very, very dark. It feels dark. The news media feels dark. The TV feels like everything feels dark now. And our job is going to be to do that, to put our God glasses on and stay focused on that one pinhole of ray of light of this whole idea of following Jesus. We have to look at everything, our circumstances, our change of circumstances, our everything through our God glasses. Our God glasses have to be that ray of light for us. And the ray of light for Abraham came in the form of a promise, verse 7. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your descendants, I will give this land that's behind us. This is all the land of Israel. And God said, this land today, thousands and thousands and thousands of years later, still is Israel, is the same land that was promised to Abraham. He said, and there he built an altar to the Lord who appeared to him. He moved from there to the mountains east of Bethel, and he pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called the name of the Lord. So Abram journeyed, going still towards the south. Here's what I want to just say to end today. Our takeaway is this: Abraham kept going. He moved through life, and he learned not to look at everything in the natural. Instead, as he moved through life, he started using the opportunities of trials and all these things like Cheyenne had in her life. Use those to do something different. Put on your God glasses and look at God, because that feels very unnatural. But that's how we need to live our life. Abraham never gave up when he saw scary things like the Canaanites. He started to see life through the eyes of God. He started to focus on God and his plan, not what I see around me. And we need to do the same. Don't give up when you don't know what God's doing. Don't fall apart when you don't know what God's doing. Wait for him to come through. Give him that time. Keep your God glasses on. Because I think it's difficult to trust God when we can't see him. And it's way easier to just live life, focus on what Facebook says and what the news says and what your friends say or your neighbors say. Because it's easier to focus on the natural. But here's what you need to know. Every person in this world sees in the natural. They just look at life all the same. Not everyone has a pair of these. Not everyone does. Not everyone can put God glasses on and say, oh, wait a minute, I'm not looking at this the right way. And so if you have God glasses, you need to make sure and use them, because God has given them to you for a reason. So here's your next assignment. The next decision you have to make, the next scary circumstance that you have, stop and pray and put on your God glasses. And start looking at that situation from God's point of view and not from the world's point of view. And then give God time to prove that he's faithful. For Cheyenne, about 4 days later, someone did come along. A couple who absolutely loved their place and were desperate to live there and were so grateful and thankful. And I think about all the anxiety that Cheyenne had because she took off her God glasses. And she started thinking in the natural. Today, I want you to envision that you have a pair of these. And you have a choice. When you walk out that door today, you will have choice after choice today. And I want you never to forget this. Put on your God glasses and see your life from God's biblical perspective. Because if you keep them off, you're going to worry and you're going to stress. And that choice will always be up to you. Put them on, leave them off. Father, thank you for what Abraham shows us. Thank you that he was a person just like us, and he had choices just like us. And that's either to look at life through your standpoint, your point of view, or to just look at everything in the natural. God, I thank you for that. I thank you for the lesson that you taught me, a reminder this week that I need to make sure and keep my God glasses on. And I pray for everyone watching this that they will do just that. And we will start living life with peace and joy because we have our glasses on, knowing that you're in control of everything. And we just trust you. We thank you for that. Thank you for Jesus and all you've done. In his name, amen.